Chosen one, stop. God says don't give away old clothes until you see this. Chosen one, before you rush to give away what no longer fits your body, pause and ask, does it still fit your spirit? The garments hanging in your closet, it are not just cloth and thread. They are living remnants of who you once believed yourself to be. That jacket you wore in heartbreak, those shoes that walked you through a season of doubt, that dress that carried your former identity, all of it holds energetic echoes of the self you are shedding. But hear this warning, do not release the physical symbol until you've undergone the inner resurrection. God is not concerned with your closet. He's focused on your consciousness. You are not merely cleaning out space, you are declaring what realm you choose to live in next. And if you give away the old before clothing yourself in the new, you risk standing spiritually naked, uncertain, unrooted, and undefined. So stop. Don't move a hanger, don't fold a shirt, until you've seen what God is really showing you through your old clothes. Physical acts must mirror inner transformation. You stand before your closet, chosen one, with bags ready and heart eager to make space for the new. But heaven leans in and whispers, not yet, because God never calls you to an outer action until the inner transformation is complete. Every movement in the physical world must mirror the state of consciousness you have already entered. If you give away your old clothes as a gesture of moving on, but your spirit is still tied to memories of lack, shame, heartbreak, or fear, then you haven't truly moved. You've only shifted things on the surface, and spiritual law does not respond to surface. It responds to substance. Your closet isn't the problem, your consciousness is. You think those clothes are just remnants of fashion or comfort, but they are silent archives of the states you once occupied. That jacket still smells like the prayers you wept in the hallway. That shirt still remembers the arguments, the dreams you buried, the person you used to pretend to be. That pair of shoes still holds the rhythm of your doubting steps, the shaky faith, the uncertain wandering. And here you are, ready to donate these garments without recognizing what they truly are. Evidence of the self you've outgrown. But understand, releasing the outer must be preceded by releasing the inner. Otherwise, you are only discarding symbols without dissolving the story. The outer world is a mirror. Every drawer you open, every bag you pack, is a reflection of what you believe about who you are. If you believe you are new, then the removal of the old becomes sacred, an act of worship, a symbol of your rebirth. But if you are still anchored in confusion, bitterness, or fear, then you're not donating old clothes. You're abandoning spiritual responsibility. You're casting away a symbol before completing its meaning, and heaven won't allow that. That's why some of you have felt resistance every time you tried to clean out your wardrobe. You sensed it, didn't you? That quiet hesitation, that strange feeling like you were letting go of something before its time, because your spirit knew what your mind had not yet understood. The physical must follow the spiritual. If you haven't stepped into the new identity God has called you to wear, then you're just creating emptiness, not elevation. You're taking off the old without having anything new to put on, and spiritually, that's dangerous. Because the void always gets filled, but not always with what you intended. When you discard the old without a clear vision of the new, the vacuum pulls in confusion, regression, and instability. That's why God is telling you, stop. Don't give anything away until you see what I am really doing. You see, every act in this world, whether big or small, must be a consequence of an inward shift. When a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it doesn't just shed its cocoon, it transforms on a molecular level first. Only when the internal metamorphosis is complete does it push through the shell. The same law applies to you. You want to throw away the garments of your past, then show heaven that you've already been clothed in your future. Assume the state first, embody the new identity. Don't just say, I'm not that person anymore. Feel that you aren't, live as though you aren't, walk in the world as if the new you is already fully born. Then, and only then, let the outer symbols catch up. Only then can the release be real, because the universe doesn't respond to what you do, it responds to who you are. If you want to discard the old, ask yourself first, what did this old represent? What belief about myself was I wearing when I wore this coat? What version of my story was I living when I picked out these jeans? What spiritual posture was I embodying when I slipped into these shoes? This is not about materialism, it's about memory, it's about manifestation. You are a temple of God, and every item that clings to your body is a testimony of the state your soul once accepted as true. That's why you must look beyond the fabric and into the frequency. Don't move from sentimentality, move from revelation. When you are truly done with a chapter, there is no resistance in letting go. But when there is still emotion, doubt, or a question lingering in your spirit, then God is calling you deeper, not into more decluttering, but into divine alignment. So don't give anything away yet. Pause, ask, listen, who have I become? And does this act align with that identity? The sacred truth is this: real change happens when the inner world becomes so saturated with the vision of your new life that the old no longer fits, not emotionally, not mentally, not energetically. And when that inner saturation occurs, releasing the old becomes automatic, not forced, not dramatic, just natural, like a tree letting go of its leaves in autumn. It knows spring is already written into its roots. So let your actions come from knowing, not hoping. Let your decisions come from identity, not insecurity. Let your donations be declarations. I am no longer this person. I have seen the new me. I wear the new me, and now this has no more power over me. You don't need to rush the process. God is not impressed with speed. He is aligned with surrender, and sometimes surrender looks like standing still in your room, surrounded by pieces of your past, and saying, Father, show me who I am now. Show me what this act means in the spirit before I make it in the flesh. That prayer, that pause is more powerful than 1,000 impulsive gestures, because that moment of clarity births eternity, and once you see it, really see it, the action will follow with peace, not pressure. So, chosen one, don't touch that closet until your mind has risen. Don't give away the old until the new is wearing you from the inside out. Don't let the world rush your process of renewal. You are not throwing out clothes. You are shedding a layer of self. And God says, before you lay it down, make sure you've picked up the vision, because only then will the release be real. Only then will the space you create be filled with glory, not ghosts, and only then will the old truly be gone, not just from your closet, but from your consciousness. That is how transformation becomes permanent. That is how heaven invades the earthly. That is how you move, not just forward, but upward. Your old clothes carry the memory of your assumptions. You must understand, chosen one, that your old clothes are not just fabric. They are frequencies. They are living witnesses of the assumptions you once wore like skin. Every thread, every hem, every worn collar and stretched sleeve holds a memory, not just of a moment in time, but of a version of yourself you agreed to be. And whether you realize it or not, that agreement was spiritual. When you dressed for rejection, you were assuming yourself unworthy. When you wore the uniform of striving, you were assuming struggle was necessary for love or success. And when you draped yourself in garments chosen through fear, whether too big to hide your body or too plain to escape attention, you were clothing yourself in belief systems, so do not casually give them away without first acknowledging what they represent. These are not just shirts and pants. These are silent sermons, wrapped in cotton, stitched with doubt, hope, heartbreak, survival, and prayers you forgot you prayed. God is not letting you move too quickly, because he wants you to see that even your class, it is a scroll, a record of who you imagined yourself to be in former days. And until you read that scroll with spiritual eyes, you risk repeating what you've unconsciously assumed. You might think, but it's just a shirt, or it's just a pair of jeans I haven't worn in years. But chosen one, there is no just in the spiritual realm. Nothing is random, nothing is neutral. That outfit you wore to a job interview where you were told you were not qualified still carries the assumption of limitation. That dress you wore when your heart was broken still echoes the belief that love leaves. That hoodie you wore when you gave up on your dream quietly cradles the agreement you made with mediocrity. These garments have absorbed more than sweat and perfume. They've absorbed your self-concept, and what you assume you become, that is the law. You didn't just wear the clothes, you wore the belief. And until you recognize the assumption that once animated that item, you won't fully break free from its echo. You'll toss it into a donation bag, but the energy will remain like smoke after a fire. You'll walk away, but something invisible will still cling to your atmosphere. That's why some of you have felt trapped even after moving forward. It's not that the new hasn't come, it's that the old wasn't released at the root. Assumptions are subtle but powerful. You live from them without realizing you ever accepted them. They become your second skin, your default reaction, your silent expectations, and clothes are among the most tangible expressions of these inner agreements. When you were heartbroken, you didn't just cry. You assumed you were unlovable, and you dressed in that shadow. When you were broke, you didn't just check your bank account. You assumed you would never have enough, and your clothes matched your mentality. This isn't about luxury or fashion, it's about alignment. What you wore reflected what you believed, and what you believed shaped your reality. So if you want to truly let go, you must ask, what belief did this item help me perform? Was I hiding? Was I proving something? Was I pretending? Was I surviving? And more importantly, have I fully released that belief? Because if you haven't, then giving the clothes away doesn't close the cycle. It just relocates it. The law of consciousness doesn't care if the shirt is in your drawer or someone else's. The question is it still in you? Clothes hold vibrations because they were worn during your states of being. If you suffered in them, they remember the suffering. If you danced in them, they recall the joy. That blouse you wore during your lowest point is more than just a garment. It is a silent imprint of your old frequency. It was there when you decided to settle. It was present when you gave up. It heard your cries even when no one else did, and that energy stays woven into the fabric. That's why sometimes when you pick up an old item, you suddenly feel heavy, nostalgic, or anxious, without knowing why. It's because your spirit recognizes what your mind has forgotten. This piece is soaked in the scent of your old identity, and you must deal with it not just as clothing, but as covenant. You made agreements while wearing it. Now, before you discard it, you must break those agreements consciously. You must reclaim the authority that you unconsciously gave away. You may be tempted to rush the process, to simply say, I don't want this anymore, and toss it aside, but heaven is asking you to go deeper. To stop and feel, not because God wants you to relive pain, but because he wants you to retrieve power. The goal isn't to cling to the old, it's to confront it. To face the self you once thought you were, and to say with bold clarity, I no longer assume this about myself. I no longer agree with this story. I no longer dress from a place of defeat, rejection, or shame. I no longer wear survival. I wear resurrection. And when that declaration is true, when it rises from the center of your spirit, then and only then can you give the old away and know that it no longer has access to you, not in thought, not in emotion, not in atmosphere. You have severed the tie not with scissors, but with spiritual truth. You are not what you used to be, but until you recognize what you used to assume, you will unknowingly relive patterns dressed in different forms. You'll date new people, but carry the same heartbreak frequency. You'll walk into new jobs, but radiate the old insecurity. You'll move to a new city, but feel the same limitations, because your assumptions traveled with you. And they often hide in the familiar, in clothes, in routines, in subtle habits. This is why God is calling you to pause before you purge, because purging without perception is powerless. You must see. You must name. You must cut the cord from a place of revelation. That's how spiritual authority works. It does not come through movement, but through meaning. When you see clearly, your action becomes sacred. When you remember consciously, your release becomes real. When you name the assumption and reject it, the garment loses its grip. So, chosen one, before you give away the old, sit with it one last time. Ask it what version of yourself it served, and then, with clarity and command, declare that version complete. No more subconscious loyalty to the suffering, no more unspoken allegiance to the identity you wore during your wilderness. You have seen the promised land, you have heard God call you by your true name, and now you don't just want to let go, you are ready to step out. not just from the clothes, but from the consciousness that chose them. Because the real power is not in what you take off, but in who you decide to become after, and when that decision is made with full faith, the old no longer has permission to follow. You are free, not because you gave it away, but because you woke up. Letting go without vision creates confusion, not clarity, chosen one. Hear this truth deep in your spirit. Letting go before you've seen the next version of yourself is not clarity. It is confusion dressed as progress. You were never meant to throw away the old unless your spirit has already clothed itself in the new. God does not call you to release anything until you are ready to receive its replacement. Yet many rush to empty their closets, their circles, their lives, in the name of starting fresh, only to find themselves standing in a spiritual void, lost, unanchored, and anxious, because the act of letting go without vision is like walking into the wilderness without a compass. It may look like movement, but it leads to nowhere. You are not meant to be in limbo. You are not called to tear down until the blueprint of the new house has been engraved on the walls of your heart. Letting go prematurely does not accelerate transformation. It interrupts it. Because every physical act must be rooted in spiritual sight. Without vision, you don't release. You wander. Without vision, you don't build. You break. And many are unknowingly tearing away the garments of their old life, without having even glimpsed the robe of righteousness God wants them to wear next. Do not confuse the desire for change with the readiness to embody it. True change begins within, long before anything is discarded or rearranged externally. When you let go without a clear, embodied vision, you are not making room, you are creating a vacuum. And the law of life is this: nature abhors a vacuum. So if you empty your drawer, your relationship, your identity, without having filled your inner world with new direction, that empty space will soon be occupied, not with divine order, but with chaos disguised as opportunity. You will attract what matches your undefined state, and confusion, beloved, is a magnet for cycles. You'll think you've moved on, but all you've done is circle back with a different face, a different job, a different city, but the same underlying identity. God doesn't want you to just walk away from the old. He wants you to walk into the new, but you can't walk into what you haven't seen. You must see it, feel it, believe it, become it, before you act. This is the divine sequence. Assume the state internally, then allow the outer world to reflect the new assumption. But when you reverse that order, letting go before assumption, you don't enter clarity, you enter confusion. This is why so many feel exhausted after releasing things. You gave away the clothes, you deleted the number, you quit the job, you even moved cities, but inside you still feel like the same person. Why? Because you let go of form without first changing function. You removed the object, but not the consciousness that attracted it. You changed your environment, but not your expectation, and that's why the feeling of freedom never truly landed. You emptied your hands, but you didn't fill your heart. You were quick to shed the old coat, but you didn't try on the new identity. So you stand spiritually naked, exposed, vulnerable, and unsure, and God in His mercy pauses you here, not to punish you, but to protect you. He knows that letting go without vision is like removing the sails from a ship without knowing where you're headed. You may feel lighter, but you're also directionless, and the wind that was meant to carry you now tosses you in all directions. You must anchor your soul in vision. You must see it before you can seize it. You must feel the future before you can faithfully release the past. This is the mistake of many, thinking that destruction equals transformation. But God is not just in the business of stripping away. He's in the business of revealing. He doesn't ask you to throw away your garments until you've seen the robe He's designed for your next chapter. But that robe isn't visible to the natural eye. It's seen in your imagination, in your faith, in your willingness to believe what your senses cannot yet confirm. That's why it's dangerous to let go prematurely. You can't just toss away symbols of the old life without first being initiated into the frequency of the new life. Your vision must rise before your hands release. Your mind must enter the next realm before your body exits the last one. And if you skip that process, if you throw away the clothes while still carrying the consciousness, you'll find yourself spiritually cold, exposed to the winds of doubt, and wondering why things still feel incomplete. It is not because God didn't move, it's because you didn't see. God works in images. He speaks in visions. Where there is no vision, the people perish, not because they lack effort, but because they lack direction. When you let go of something you used to identify with, without first identifying with something greater, your soul panics. It doesn't know where to go, so it returns to what's familiar. That's why you must first behold the promise before you leave the past. See yourself clothed in wholeness, feel yourself walking in peace, know yourself as beloved, abundant, powerful, before you let go of the garments that represented fear, lack, rejection, and survival. Otherwise, the letting go becomes performative, not prophetic. You perform the act, but it doesn't prophesy a new life. It only reenacts the pain of the last one. Clarity does not come from letting go. It comes from seeing the next. Your closet isn't your burden, your blind spot is. Don't rush to make space if you haven't filled your spirit with what's coming. God will not leave you empty-handed. He wants you to be led by vision, not by void. You think you're decluttering, but God is asking, do you even know what you're making room for? Because if you don't, confusion will fill the space. You'll reach for the past again, not because you love it, but because you didn't prepare your soul for anything better. That's why vision is your first assignment. Before you give away the old, see yourself in the new. Close your eyes and let the divine image take root. Who are you now? Who has God called you to be? What do you wear in the realm of victory? What does wholeness look like on you? Until you can answer those questions with conviction, you are not ready to let go. You are only trying to escape, and escape never leads to elevation. Only vision does. So, chosen one, before you donate, discard, or detach, pause and ask, what do I see, not with the eyes of flesh, but with the eyes of faith? Am I being led by revelation or reaction? Have I seen the new name, the new identity, the new state God wants me to walk in? If the answer is no, then it's not time to let go. Not yet. Wait until you've seen. Wait until your spirit has been baptized in the vision. Because once you've truly seen, the release becomes easy. It becomes joyful. It becomes sacred. You won't be confused. You won't be anxious. You'll know, deep in your bones, that the old is over because the new has already begun, and when you let go from that place, you won't feel lost. You'll feel found. God uses symbols to reveal your state of being chosen one. Open your inner eyes and see God is always speaking, not in random signs, but in symbols that mirror the condition of your consciousness. And the clothes you wear, the items you cling to, the artifacts in your room, they are not just material things, they are sacred symbols that testify of your state of being. This is the mystery most overlooked. God does not force his voice upon you. He places a mirror in front of you. And everything around you, especially your clothing, is that mirror. You are always prophesying, even when you don't realize it. What you wear, what you save, what you feel drawn to hold onto or let go of, these are not surface-level choices. These are spiritual echoes. Your closet is a canvas painted by your internal world. The garment hanging on that hook, the shoes you haven't worn in years, the jacket you saved from a version of yourself that no longer exists. These are not remnants of fashion. They are symbols of belief, of identity, of assumption. They say more about your inner state than your words ever could. And God allows these symbols to remain in your life not to haunt you, but to awaken you. Look around you not as someone who is cleaning, but as someone who is decoding. Ask yourself, what does this shirt say about the way I saw myself when I bought it? What fear did this jacket try to cover? What mask did this outfit help me wear? You'll discover, if you are honest, that most of what you own is a frozen image of a self, concept you once believed. These things become symbols, not because God needs them to communicate, but because your soul does. You are constantly expressing the unseen through the seen. That is the law of life. Every symbol you surround yourself with is like a doorway back to the emotional state you were in when you first chose it. You may have forgotten, but your spirit has not. That old hoodie carries the spirit of depression. That beautiful dress you've never worn speaks of your forgotten confidence. That pair of shoes that hurts your feet but sits on display is a symbol of who you pretended to be. These are not just objects, they are expressions, and until you interpret them rightly, they will continue to influence you subtly. God uses symbols not to manipulate, but to enlighten. because symbols speak to your subconscious mind in a language that bypasses logic. You may not be able to say in words what your soul is carrying, but your surroundings are already declaring it. That's why spiritual maturity begins with inner observation. You must become the interpreter of your own environment. Every item in your closet, every photo on your wall, every perfume on your dresser is either affirming who you truly are or dragging you back into who you once believed yourself to be. And until you see this clearly, you will unknowingly stay tethered to the old story, even while praying for the new. You will cry out for change, but live inside symbols that affirm stagnation. You will declare breakthrough, but dress like someone still afraid to be seen. Your mouth will say, I believe, but your surroundings will say, I don't yet trust. That contradiction is why your manifestations delay, not because you lack faith, but because your symbols still tell a different story. God is not a God of confusion. When he calls you into a new season, he begins by confronting the symbols of the old one. He gently reveals to you the inconsistencies between what you claim to know and what you still live among. That's why certain items suddenly feel heavy. That's why some old clothes begin to irritate your spirit. That's why things that once gave you comfort now feel like clutter. It's not about the item, it's about the state it symbolizes. The garment didn't change, you did. You're rising, and God is showing you what no longer aligns, but he's not telling you to throw it all away blindly. He's calling you to see, to recognize what that symbol meant to you and to bless it for the part it played in your journey. Then, with understanding, you release it, not as a victim escaping, but as a victor graduating. Because once you see the symbol for what it was, it loses its power to hold you. You no longer fear letting go because you've already evolved inwardly. Even the way you fold your clothes can reflect your state of mind. Do you treat your garments with reverence or resentment? Are you clinging to something because it once made you feel worthy, or because you still believe it defines your worth? When you understand that God teaches through symbols, you begin to handle everything differently. You realize nothing is neutral. You don't just put on a jacket. You put on an idea. You don't just wear an outfit. You step into a self-image. And when you wear something, you are making an unspoken agreement. This is who I am right now. That's why God cares about your garments, not for appearance, but for alignment. You are clothing yourself in belief. And when that belief no longer matches who God has revealed you to be, your clothing begins to contradict your calling. So, chosen one, don't just declutter, discern. What are the symbols in your life trying to show you? What self-image have you unconsciously kept alive by holding onto garments soaked in your old fears? God is not calling you to perform minimalism. He's inviting you into spiritual integrity. He wants your outer world to match the inner transformation he's birthing. And he'll keep bringing your attention to the symbols until you see them not with judgment, but with revelation. You'll understand that the clothes weren't holding you back. It was the unconscious agreement you made while wearing them. The moment you see the symbol clearly, the spell is broken. You no longer serve that version of yourself. You no longer need to perform that role. You are free to embody the truth. And what is the truth? That you are not who you were when you bought that shirt. You are not who you were when you survived that season. You are not even who you were yesterday. You are being transformed from glory to glory. And each new level requires new language, new posture, and yes, new symbols. The old served its purpose. Honor it, then let it go, because God is writing a new symbol in your spirit: wholeness, confidence, joy, power. Let your environment reflect it. Let your wardrobe agree with it. Let your life symbolize it. This is not about clothes. This is about consciousness. It is time to clothe yourself in your divine identity, not just in word, but in every symbol that surrounds you. You must bless the old before you can be robed in the new chosen one. Listen carefully, for this is a sacred law of transition. You cannot step into the new while cursing the old. You cannot be robed in the next version of yourself while despising the garments that clothed you in your previous becoming. Too many are quick to discard, to reject, to resent what they used to wear, where they used to live, who they used to be, as though shaming the past will summon the future. But what you reject with bitterness will follow you in spirit, even if it's no longer with you in form. You do not free yourself by throwing something away in anger. You free yourself by blessing it in truth. The garments of your old identity, the clothes that once made you feel protected, the objects that gave you some semblance of power in a time of insecurity, these were not enemies, they were teachers. And God, in His mercy, allowed you to be clothed in them for a season so you could survive, so you could walk, so you could believe, even if only a little. Those clothes you now call old were once your covering while your faith was growing. They were the outer layer of a seed God planted in you long before you were ready to bloom. So before you discard, before you clean out your closet in the name of ascension, stop and ask, have I blessed what once carried me? Transformation does not come through force. It is born of reverence. You cannot shame the chapter that shaped you and still expect to reap the full harvest of its lesson. Even if the garment represented pain, it carried a purpose. That jacket you wore every day during your season of brokenness, yes, it may look like depression to you now, but it also covered you while you learned how to pray. That dress you wore when you didn't know your worth, it may remind you of your lowest moments, but it also was the fabric wrapped around your awakening. Do you not see even your mistakes were ordained tools? Even your ugliest clothes were woven into the garment of your growth. The old wasn't a curse, it was a cocoon. And you cannot fly while hating the thing that protected your wings while they were still forming. Bless it, chosen one, thank it, honor it. Only then will the divine robe of your next self be laid upon your shoulders. You may feel tempted to tear everything down, to throw out every reminder of who you used to be in an effort to erase the pain. But healing doesn't come by erasing. Healing comes by recognizing. You must see the sacred even in the struggle. You must look back with eyes of grace and say, even then God was with me, even in that season I was covered, because once you bless the old, it loses its power to haunt you. Once you recognize that even the worst parts were part of your becoming, you are no longer bitter, you are anointed, and the blessing you pour upon the old becomes the soil that nourishes the new. The robe you seek, the one of clarity, peace, power, and divine identity, does not fall upon the shoulders of the resentful, it clothes the grateful. Gratitude is the gate through which your future enters. And you cannot walk through that gate if you're still throwing stones at your past. Remember, clothing in the Spirit always follows revelation, and revelation requires reverence. Before the prodigal son was robed in new garments, he had to return home, humbled, awakened, and ready to receive not just a new outfit, but a new nature. The robe was not a reward, it was a response to the inner shift, the inner blessing, the inner surrender. In the same way, you are not just waiting on a new wardrobe in the physical. You are being prepared for a new state of being. But if your heart is still bitter, if your soul is still angry at who you were, if you're still ashamed of the way you had to survive, then the robe cannot rest upon you yet. It would slide off. Not because God doesn't want to clothe you, but because you haven't yet become the version of yourself who can wear it, and the fastest way to become that version is to bless the version you were. Look at the old shoes, the ones worn down from years of walking in circles, and say, thank you, you carried me when I didn't know where I was going. Look at the old shirt, the one you used to wear to hide from the world, and say, thank you, you gave me courage when I was afraid to be seen. Look at the old life, the routines, the jobs, the relationships, and say, thank you, you gave me the contrast I needed to see who I truly am. This is not romanticizing pain, this is sanctifying it, because until you sanctify your past, you will sabotage your future. And God is trying to give you new clothes, chosen one, not to hide your past, but to crown your becoming. He's not trying to cover up your story. He's trying to complete it, to be robed in the new means to carry yourself with the authority of someone who has made peace with the journey. And peace only comes after blessing. You can speak in tongues, pray all night, and declare your new identity. But if you still curse the old with your thoughts, your energy will betray your words. There will be a fracture in your frequency. You'll wear the new coat, but underneath, your soul will still be trembling in yesterday's shame, and the robe will feel heavy. It will feel foreign. It won't feel like you. Why? Because you never made peace with who you used to be. You tried to leap into glory without first kneeling in gratitude, but grace doesn't work that way. Grace doesn't erase what came before, it redeems it. So before you give away the old clothes, before you toss out the past in haste, take a moment. Sit with it, let God show you the purpose in what once felt purposeless. Let him reveal to you how every outfit, every moment, every version of you was wrapped in his hand. Then say the sacred words, "Thank you. I bless you. You served me well, but now I rise, and as you speak, the robe of your next season will descend, not from a store, but from heaven, not stitched by human hands, but woven in the fabric of your awakened identity. And when you put it on, it will fit perfectly, not because it hides your past, but because it fulfills it. This is the divine order. You bless the old, and the new reveals itself. You release with honor, and you receive with clarity. You clothe yourself in gratitude, and glory follows. This is how heaven dresses those it calls chosen, not with garments made of fabric, but with robes soaked in revelation, humility, and wholeness. And now that you understand, you are ready. The old no longer owns you. The past no longer pulls you. The robe is ready, and so are you.